Nice. So we for this meeting we just have like a small presentation going into like breaking into like product management and like describing what the PM does, how to get involved at UMass, how to like what the industry does in terms of like product management and what you can do like to learn new skills. So I'll just share my screen. Can everyone see this? Okay, cool. So I just wanted to go over the general PM placement. So if you see over here, you have like the executive at the top, and then you have like product management, marketing, operations, engineering. And this is like engineering is kind of like what we focus on in the CICS college and the CS department. But if you look at product management to the left over here, they have like product marketing and product planning. So product management has like a few. Oh, product management has like a few division on its own. So inside product, you have like, you can market new products, you can strategize and plan new products. And if you look at under marketing and engineering, they have like product management division inside themselves. So this is just to like give you a structure of like how product management works inside of a company. So if you're working at like a company, let's say Google or Amazon, this is kind of like the way they structure it. So that even if you're working for product management, you can work inside engineering, you can work inside marketing, you can work inside business. That's kind of like a feel of that. Yeah. So these are like a few general responsibilities that a PM has. So they like write product analysis. So a lot of the job goes into like writing PRDs, which is kind of like a product requirement documentation. And we'll go over that later on when we kind of like give an example of a product interview. So like coming up with like user requirements, like if I'm coming up with a new product, how will this product look like in the market, how it's looking in terms of like users, engineering, all of that standpoint. Apart from product analysis comes execution. So how will we be shipping a product to build an MVP? An MVP is kind of like a minimum viable product. So kind of like the core features. So how will you be building those core features from like ideation to deployment? And there's like a lot of strategy involved in that, and like a lot of strategy and planning. Another good aspect of like the product management responsibility is leadership and collaboration. So you kind of, although the word has like manager in it, there's no like real authority that you have over people. So you always have to like have influence over other people, and you have to present like data driven goals, and not like that you have like these managerial responsibilities that you can just assign tasks to. Everything that you'll be doing, you'll be like debating over certain things, and if everyone on the team is on the same page, then you'll be going forward with that. So like collaborating with like engineering, design, marketing, it's kind of like a lot of like hands-on role. So if you like kind of like to get your feet wet in all of these different things, then it's like a good role for you. Another thing is like you propose like guidelines or project or like a roadmap for the project. So like let's say that you're developing like a mobile app, right? You have to look into how much time you'll be looking into like actually developing it and actually launching the mobile app. So let's say that you have a timeline of 12 months for developing this application. You have to highlight milestones. So like in the first month, we'll be developing the map component. In the second or the fourth month, we'll be doing this. And then you have to make sure that you will actually like meet those technical milestones as well. And then lastly comes like strategy. So I wrote like write a new feature proposal, but a strategy comes in a lot of different things. Like there could be like branding, there could be like UI overhaul, there could be like different strategies that you always play through. And one thing to keep in mind is that a PM is always users oriented. So like they're always user centric. So they ask themselves different questions. So like in terms of like product PRDs or like strategies, you always ask your core user group. So if your core user group is, let's say, teenagers from like 13 to 18-year-olds, you'll always be focusing on that target group and like kind of like thinking in that particular area. I don't know what's happening. I don't know. I think it's just my laptop.
Again, dude, click on it.
Yeah, I clicked on it.
And then use your arrows. Seriously? Oh God.
I don't know. It just my laptop.
I'll share my screen again.
Yeah, sorry for this again. I think I gotta return my laptop, get a new one. This one, ironically, it's been given to me by the university. So it's a good MacBook, but it's kind of slow sometimes. So yeah, it's kind of weird.
Okay. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay. So, you don't have to wait for professional experience. If you want to get started with product management, you can always get experience at UMass. And there's a bunch of resources and places that you can get started with. There's the campus access where they're focused on technical product management, where you're solving real world problems. They have projects going on, which is great. Then
Um,
there's Dash.
I can talk a bit about this. So
Yeah,
this
go ahead.
um, campus access is how I got involved into like product management. I got involved like sophomore year spring semester, and I didn't really know what like product management was about. So I just like I was fortunate enough to like have an internship, and then I learned how it feels like to like lead an engineering team, collaborate with stakeholders, give them presentations, get additional seed funding. It's kind of like a good startup. So if you're like really into entrepreneurship, like leadership, all of that, it's kind of like a good role for you. It's what I've learned. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Then there's the dashboard, which is in collaboration with Hacker and Hack UMass. And like it says over there, it's a student developed web platform. And they're always looking to hire designers and developers. Like Dhruv was talking about, designing is also important when it comes to product management. And, if you're looking to get experience in those areas, dashboard's a great place. You can always contact Cody. He's actually in a class with me right now. So yeah, just email him and hopefully he can, help you get sorted. Then there's Build UMass. Disha and Dhruv are both part of this. They hire business developers, or as Disha says, another name for product managers. And yeah, they're always working on local projects to help further business and tech strategy. Yeah, that's a great place that you can go to for experience. Then there's Eisenberg's Consulting Club or IUCG. This will give you more of like a business focused experience because product does involve the business side of things. So you have that resource, and you also have your entrepreneurship club where you can develop leadership skills and also get more of like the business side of product management. And apart from all these kind of clubs and organizations, you even have courses that you can take. Right now, Dhruv and I, we're in CS 529, which is project management. And over there, we're leading teams of 10 students and learning how to organize them, direct them in the right way. So you kind of get good, like, it's not exactly product management, but you still get very relevant skills and experiences towards product management. And yeah, and then, oh my God, my laptop. Okay, yeah. So obviously, like everyone's product experience is not the same. There's different industries that you could be a part of. And right here is this entire list. Like if you want to get involved in design, you have Adobe, Figma. If you want to do straight up engineering, Stripe, Google, project management, Microsoft, Asana, Atlassian, data science, you got Databricks, Datadog, Splunk. And then obviously consumer facing is literally everything social media. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Then there's business to business. If you're more into that, you got Salesforce. My personal favorite, fintech, you have Robinhood, PayPal, BNY Mellon, and then obviously, how can you not mention like tech companies without Tesla? So Tesla too. And then, so, positions are open right now for, sophomores and juniors. Guys, is there freshman stuff too?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, but there's things open. If you're looking for them, you can definitely apply to them. It never hurts to apply, so just send it, I guess.
Uh,
And
yeah, and I think one other thing that I wanted to add was like the reason why we mentioned so many industries is kind of like to figure out what that fits you as well. Like if you like more design tools, then like Figma and Adobe might be for you. Otherwise, if you are more like technical oriented, then you can probably go into like Google or like Stripe or other companies like that. So it's kind of like what you're interested in, because there's like a range of companies that hire like these PM positions. And it's not just like PM positions. Like if you're a freshman or a sophomore, there's like these leadership positions that later turn into PM. So don't think that I don't see like a product management or a project management internship position or a full-time position, so let me not apply. Like like those leadership positions actually are kind of like product positions, or like they are a mix of like software and product, and they later turn into like what you want. But yeah.
Yeah, and the Microsoft and Optum internships that are listed on this slide, they both are for freshmen and sophomores. The Microsoft one and the Optum one goes until freshmen to juniors, and they're known to hire freshmen from CICS. So if those are still open, Explore might be full, but I would definitely apply to Optum. And then that Airtable link is something that our careers office sends out to freshmen and sophomores and pretty much everyone. There's a bunch of like valuable resources on there as well. But if you don't have any experience yet, because you like haven't gotten involved with student orgs yet and you're still a first or second year, I would definitely apply to those. And to the chat, Explore's internship opened up in, I want to say mid-August, and they go on a rolling basis. So they're generally full by the end of October, early November. Shoot your shot and apply, but you generally have to apply like really, really early to get into those programs. But you should still apply. It's worth a shot. Okay, so now that we talked about like what PM is, if you are like applying for industry and that sort of stuff, to give you a quick overview on like what PM interviews are like, technical interviews, if you are coming from like a CS or info background, those are more like solving technical problems or like sorting an array or like working with hash maps. So in a PM interview, fortunately, you don't have to do any of those status stuff, but it is still really hard. And there's 4 different kind of pillars that all of the companies really focus on. So the first round for most companies will be like a behavioral interview. And one thing that we forgot to put on this slide is if you can get this book, it's called Cracking the PM Interview. All of our content is pretty much from this book, and like Pritham, there are all of us, we all study from this book for our interviews, and all of the practice questions are also from this book. So if you end up getting an interview at a company and you want to prepare, this book is like the holy grail on how to get started. But yeah, so for behavioral questions, one thing that's really big in product management is communication. So they'll ask a whole range of different behavioral questions, trying to see how you work in a team. But the only thing that they're really trying to understand is just communication, communication, communication. How do you communicate with others? If you disagree with someone, how do you communicate with them? If you have to deliver bad news to someone, I was actually asked this question in an interview, which was kind of crazy. Like they literally asked, how do you deliver bad news to someone? So they really just want to see how you communicate with others. And then after the behavioral, it starts to get a little bit more tricky. So there's a second round of what's called estimation questions, which can get really weird. These are some of the most commonly asked questions, like how much money does Gmail make in ads every year? Or how many tennis balls can fit into a 2-bedroom apartment? Or another one I've heard is like, how many golf balls can you fit in a Boeing 787? It's kind of crazy. But if you get that book again, you'll see there's like really, really specific formulas that they want you to break down the question into. So they don't want you to say like, it's going to take exactly 500 golf balls, but they more want to see like your thought process to it. And this ties into how product managers kind of have to estimate the revenue that's going to come in. So for example, when LinkedIn added stories, the PM who's in charge of LinkedIn stories had to come up with a pitch on how much revenue they think the stories are going to bring in. And how he did that is by creating these equations that you have to do in the interview. And then after estimation, there's something called product sense, which is just like design questions and like kind of seeing what your whole product sense is, like how assimilated you are with different types of products, whether it's software or hardware and things like that. And then we have the typical case studies, which you have in like general consulting interviews, like for example, why did Facebook buy Instagram, or why did Microsoft buy LinkedIn? And when Microsoft bought LinkedIn, Salesforce was one of the biggest competitors who was also trying to buy LinkedIn. So they could ask you like, why were Salesforce and Microsoft both competing for LinkedIn? And the answer is the amount of data that LinkedIn has, none of them wanted their competitor to have it. So if you read a lot of books like Swipe to Unlock, listen to podcasts like the Wall Street Journal Tech Briefing, that will really, really help you with the case study questions. So if you really are serious about product and want to get into it, try to like start reading books right now and reading books, reading articles, being up to date with podcasts right now, so that when you have an interview, you're not like cramming in a month of like tech industry news into your head in like a 1-week period. But yeah, these are the 4 pillars of the interview. I know it's a little bit different from just like coding interviews and that sort of stuff, but these are generally what they look like. So the book is cracking the PM interview. There's also a cracking the coding interview, but this one is specifically for PM. And then once you read this book, you can also read this book, which is Decode and Conquer. And this one is just practice questions. So the author like writes a question and then also writes the answer for you, which is really great. And then the name of the podcast that I listen to is the Wall Street Journal Tech News Briefing. So it's every single morning, 20 minutes, and it tells you about like what's going on in the industry. Like, for example, today's episode was about Google being sued by the Department of Justice for their antitrust actions or whatever. So that really keeps you up to date. Like, for example, if you have an interview with Google next week, one of the questions you could ask them is, how is this lawsuit impacting your business? And it shows that you're really up to date. All right, we can go on to the next slide. Okay, so we'll send the slides in our Slack channel afterwards. But for example, before or after your behavioral interview, you might get a take-home assignment given to you. And there's a link right there for what a take-home assignment might look like. It's generally just like, I know Uber and Lyft both do take-home assignments. So it's usually just like, come up with a feature that Uber or Lyft can implement. Why should we implement it? How much will it cost? What will it look like? Basically from start to finish. And then you have to make your case to the product manager at Uber or Lyft or Cloudflare on why they should go for your feature. And it is competitive, it's really hard, but again, this is where you show your product sense, and this is where you show that you are really passionate about this. So these are a couple of just like pointers on how you can prepare. If you do get a take-home assignment or any other interview, feel free to like drop it in our recruiting channel, and we can work with you on like practicing or going over your take-home assignment. We do that for like our own interviews, and it's always really helpful. And then one common interview question that I've actually been asked twice now, that's how common it is what is your favorite product and how would you improve it? So anytime you have a product management interview, it's really important that you go in knowing what your favorite software product, your favorite hardware product, and one other product are, so that you can talk about it in an interview, because it's almost like a 90% chance that they will ask you this question. The slides will be in Slack right after this session. So for example, I would say like the Apple Podcast app is my favorite software app. My Hatch alarm clock is my favorite hardware app. And then I'll come up with something else for the third one. But that's like a really common product question. And then they'll just like purge into you and be like, why is it your favorite product? Or how would you improve it? And you could say things like, for example, for the Apple Podcast app, in the morning when I'm listening to that podcast on my iPad, if I want to go on a walk and continue listening to my podcast, there's no handoff between my iPad and my iPhone. So I have to go on the Apple on my iPhone, open the podcast app again, and go right back to like, if I was at minute like 2 minutes and 50 seconds, it doesn't automatically hand off, which would be a really, really helpful feature for me. So just like little things like that, where you can talk about why you would improve your product or things like that. What's the next slide? Okay, so a bunch of skills that you can highlight and develop, which you'll definitely get if you go back to like our ways to get involved at UMass and you do a couple of those things. You'll learn about communication, leadership. More like hard skills that you could learn would be, there's this website called SQL Bolt, which is really helpful for learning SQL, which is a great skill that they look for in PMs. Data visualizations would be cool to know. A/B testing would be really cool to know, which if you read Swipe to Unlock, they have like a whole section on it. And then just like any other data, user, product, customer skills, if you could learn those. There's also a bunch of LinkedIn Learning courses, but I think you have to pay to be a member. I'm not sure. But they have a bunch of classes on just like product management, and you can get quick certificates, put them on your LinkedIn profile. So that's also a great tool. Oh, and also, if you do end up getting a product internship interview at any company, make sure that you do a lot of research on that company. When we post these slides, there's a link on that here word to really like deep spreadsheet, which again, we got from CTPI. And that goes into really, really detail on any company that you may be doing, like what their market is, what their products are, etc., which are really great to know before an interview. Next slide. All right, questions.
Yeah, I just want to highlight a few things as well before we dive into questions. Was um, kind of like being a good product manager, like going into the industry, is a lot about, like Desha mentioned, being on the top of your game about knowing different things. So if you're like listening to podcasts, if you're listening to like different news articles, like knowing what's good in the industry, like if a company sued another company, like what's the trend right now for like this particular industry, or like if you're really interested into social media, let's say, or you're really interested into one division, what's the trend for that? But yeah, we can take any questions that you have.
I think we kind of went through questions as we were presenting. But to expand further on podcasts, I would highly recommend getting into podcasts. Like there's some really great ones. There's one by Guy Raz or something like that on NPR. I've only listened to one episode with Payal Kadakia from ClassPass, but he does like podcast episodes with startup founders whose companies went into like billion or $1 million seed funding rounds. And it's really interesting. Like all of these founders talk about how they identified a certain problem in their life that they really wanted to solve. Like, for example, the Ring doorbell guy was talking about how he was always tinkering in his garage and he could never hear the freaking doorbell. So he was like, I need to solve this. And then he just created a doorbell for himself, and his friends and family loved it, so he made them for him, like his friends and family. And then he was like, wait, maybe other people want it. And then he just made this small doorbell that he needed because he was in the garage and couldn't hear the doorbell. And then Amazon bought his company for like $1 billion, which is phenomenal that he just had this one tiny problem and then that turned into a gigantic company. So it's always really interesting to listen to such podcasts, which are more like storytelling experience side. The Wall Street Journal Tech News Briefing is more like 20 minutes every single morning. Start your day off informed and knowledgeable about what's going on. There's also the Financial Times, which, if you're like, I'm an economics major as well. So if you're more interested in like the fintech side or like the finance side of stuff, you can listen to that podcast to learn more about like Slack's earnings this morning or like how the stock market is doing in terms of the tech industry, that sort of stuff. But definitely recommend podcasts. Also, I think we had a question in the chat, Dhruv, if you want to go into that.
Sure. I think, yeah, so the best time to do like software applications are September and October. I feel like for PMs, you kind of have to start sooner. You have to start from like August or September. It kind of depends on either internships or full times. For internships, you can like still start a bit late because most of the applications don't like they have like a later on deadline. But for full-time jobs, like they have like a specific 10 to 20 day window, and they range from like mid-August to like September, and that's for like most of the companies, and they are accepting on a rolling basis. So I would say that starting from August to September is kind of a good deal, because for software, what happens is that you get a lot of interviews, and then it's about like cramming those interviews and like doing coding questions and everything. But for PM, like getting those interviews is harder. Like getting like once you start early in like August or September, and then preparing on those interviews is definitely more important because you want to capitalize on that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how like not for internship necessarily, but mostly for new grad product management positions, the application only opens up for 2 weeks because they're so competitive that they want to cut down on the amount of people applying. They only open the application for 2 weeks. Like I think the Salesforce APM was open for like 7 days. So you just have to get in, apply right before the deadline closes, which can be really hard to do with school and trying to balance everything. But that's why it's great if you can try to stay up to date on studying and preparing for interviews just on a regular basis, so that when an application opens up or you do get an interview, you're not like panicking to get ready to go.
Yeah, and like Disha mentioned, it's kind of like internships have a lot more leeway, so you can like still start later on and like get ahead. But I feel like for full-time jobs, it's kind of like just making it like a list about what industry that you're experienced in. And this kind of like pairs into your second question, that how do you tailor like a technical resume to doing PM things. This is kind of it's a good question. It's kind of you have to hone in on your own experiences. Like it depends on the company that you're applying to. So let's say that you're applying to Google, then you want to focus more on like entrepreneurship and how you can like have a bigger impact, like make more scalable solutions, rather than if you're like applying to like the Asana associate product manager, or like a different company like that. You have to make sure that you're really good with design tools and you are really intuitive, like in terms of design. So you have to like tailor your technical resume to like each company, I would say, because these are like the bigger companies. Because I would say that small companies don't really have like a new grad APM role. That's mainly like 50 or 100 handful of companies, even for internships like that as well. So you kind of have to tailor your resume to each of that company.
Yeah, and Aman, if you need help with your resume, feel free to send it in like one of our Slack channels. Like in the beginning of recruiting season, I was only getting software engineering internships, and Dhruv like tore into my resume and was like, no wonder you're only getting software engineering interviews. Like there's a reason why, because my entire resume was just talking about like I did this in Java and I did that in Python, but like what did you actually do in terms of business and product? So once we like literally went through line by line and like changed everything around, I finally started getting more like take home assignments and like product interviews. So you can see like the complete transformation in just language and like the skills that you highlight on a product resume versus a software engineering resume. And if you need help with that, we're like more than happy to help. That's what this community is for.
It's actually really interesting. I think I might do that because I didn't think about tailoring my resume that much, but okay, yeah, I definitely will do that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Arham saying that, so freshman, I'm just looking into the question. So I don't think it should affect your application because you don't need to put necessarily like a US address. You can put your university's address. So if you need it for applications, you can always put the IPO's address if you're if you're abroad or like you're somewhere else, and then like you can worry about that later.
Yeah, it's not like they're gonna be mailing you anything, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I would say that don't worry about like addresses and like all the paperwork. Just like apply and like shoot your shot, and then you can always worry about that later. You can always say that yeah, because of like COVID, I couldn't come on campus and I couldn't do this. And I think companies always understand that. Any other questions?
Maybe we can do a practice question. Is anyone up for it? I think Preetham's up for it.
Yes, let's do it. God.
All right, Preetham, what's your favorite product and why?
Wow, I was literally thinking about this just now. Favorite product. It's gonna sound I think I really enjoy like the PlayStation 4. It's like the perfect harmony of software and hardware. Just because it's especially the way it's developed over the years, because I've had it since like 2014 and they've changed their software updates on, and basically what they've made the way you interact with games super easy. Like I can switch between games, which is really nice. They have a social feature to it too.
Okay, if you were to improve it, then how would you do that?
How would I improve it?
What's one or two features that you would want to add?
4K 60 FPS hardware.
English, please. I don't know what that is.
Okay, no, seriously speaking, if I had to talk about kind of more sometimes it can be kind of unreliable with servers, so I'd fix that first of all about their entire thing. But that's like more of the software side. As far as the product goes, for the controllers, I would increase the battery life because they die so quick. Like it's so annoying. So I play F1 a lot, and so because you're driving a car, the controller vibrates a lot, which uses a lot of the battery. And so I'm constantly charging my controller. So if there's one thing I definitely improve, it's the battery life of the controllers.
I've never played PS4. I'm a Wii person. Wii Sports, that's my thing.
Yeah, see, you had to replace batteries in that too.
All right. Dhruv, do you want to go? What's your favorite product?
So I would say that my favorite product is Slack, because I kind of like how they've put all like the workplace communication aspect of it. They before Slack doing it, not there wasn't really like a workplace communication that you could like have like different channels for like different spheres in the job, and could actually like communicate, have like private channels, like go over different stuff. So I really like that component of it. One unique selling point for Slack for me is that they have like really cool emojis. So you kind of get excited in terms of communication. Like they've built up like a good ecosystem of like communication between workplace. So it's kind of professional as well, but it's also cool, which I like.
So do you prefer Microsoft Teams or Slack?
Oh yeah, Slack hands down.
So why?
So I prefer Slack because I feel like Microsoft Teams is, first of all, I haven't explored much because it's kind of focused more on like enterprise. But I feel Slack is kind of more, it has a really good UI. I like the UI and the experience and the feel of it. But also I feel like Microsoft Teams is kind of restricted in the sense that it caters to a lot of companies and it doesn't cater to a lot of students. So me coming from like a student perspective, I feel like it's more hands-on for me.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the user experience on Slack is so much better than Microsoft Teams. Like this past summer when I was at Liberty, they used Teams. And then for like all of their fun conversations, like their random channels, their like channels, they had their own Slack. Like that explains it so clearly that they use their professional stuff to talk on Teams. And then they go on Slack to like relax and actually get to know their coworkers, which actually speaks to like just the vibe that both platforms are putting out. So that's so funny.
Yeah, I really like the way that they develop like a culture within the company through Slack, which is really unique. But what's your favorite product, Disha?
I already answered this question, the Apple Podcast. How about Govind? You seem to be smiling a lot. Do you have a favorite product?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this. I think it'd be the iPhone, just because it simply works. Like, you wake up in the morning, like, the one thing that you can definitely rely on is your iPhone if it's charged. And that's my biggest pitfall with an iPhone is the battery life, because I feel like iPhones are notoriously bad. Like, Apple themselves were like caught, I think, a year or two back doing that, like optimizing your performance based on how much battery you had, which kind of just showed that Apple was dealing with battery issues. I'd probably just remove a camera from the iPhone and like probably reduce the processor space, because as much as Apple says that phones need to have so much processing power, for someone like me, I just need the iPhone to work and I just need the battery life. I do not need a gaming console on my phone. So I guess that is my favorite product.
So have you looked into the new iPhone? Are you considering it?
Not really, just because 5G modems are still expensive. That's the reason Apple stopped like giving the chargers away. Like people expected the price to drop by like $50 on the iPhone, I think, this time. But that didn't really happen because apparently 5G is too expensive. So I just wait out for like a year or two when they can finally like give this at a better cost.
I feel like Apple is like one of the smartest tech companies though. Like one of the courses that we listed on the PowerPoint is Econ 397 LE Liars Economics. And it's basically big data economics. And one of the things you learn about is behavioral econ. And our professor is like some whack like PhD student. And she was talking about how the default option has such a big impact on the consumer. Like whatever the default option is, you're 99% more likely to just go with the default versus like actually using your brain and picking something else. So when Apple got rid of the headphone jack on their iPhones, people were like, what? Why would you do that? And a month later, they came out with the AirPods. And there's no way that you're going to go and buy like Beats or Bose headphones when the default is just buying a pair of AirPods when you buy your iPhone. And now the AirPods are almost to 60% of revenue for Apple, which is crazy. So I feel like, yeah, their iPhone like battery sucks, but they're definitely one of the smartest companies.
Also, that default thing was why the lawsuit, one of the reasons for the lawsuit that they announced today was because like the Apple Google deal is like $12 billion right now, or 18, somewhere in between that. And it's because on your phone, whenever you buy a new one, Google's the default search engine. Like, and that's a big problem that they have with Google right now. Like, why is Google doing this?
Yeah,
But
Google does
yeah,
a bunch of crazies. Is there anyone here who's watched The Social Dilemma?
I have. It's a really good
Aditya,
show.
you watched it? What did you think? Oh, Aman, what were you saying?
Oh, I watched it. Sorry. Yeah.
What did you think?
I thought it was a really good. I mean, it was a half drama, but it was still really good. The drama was a little cringy, but what they had in there was really nice. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, Aditya, what did you think?
Yeah, I felt the same too. It was a bit exaggerated at some parts, but yeah, it was great to watch. Yeah, I used a lot of it in context in other my classes.
But what about the other Aditya? Sorry, I didn't realize there's
No worries. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
same as the other two. The drama was kind of it felt like a teenage, not teenage, like a grade 9 sex ed commercial. Like that like overly like hammered in
did
type
you
of
go
thing.
to school in grade 9, man? What?
Don't worry about it. It was very clearly like acted, I guess. But I mean, it was still cool, and yeah, it was interesting to see how. What am I saying? I don't know. It was cool.
I feel like it was eye-opening. Like I went and deleted Facebook from my phone after that. I was like, hell no,
Yeah.
you jackass, no, think again. Like you're not getting this much data on me. It was crazy. And like how you were talking about Google, one of the things that they were showing was like if you're in Alabama and you type in Google like climate change is, then the recommended searches that it gives you is climate change is a hoax, climate change is fake, climate change is this. Versus in California, if you put climate change, it'll say climate change is going to kill all of us. Climate change is real. Climate change is that. And like, that's not good. Like, they should not be just like contributing to the division just to earn a couple extra bucks. I don't care if it's millions or billions.
The thing
So,
that got me personally was related to that is how Facebook can make you more or less likely to vote. Like
yeah,
empirically,
Yeah.
they can make you more likely to vote. They can do it. They can choose to do that. And they can choose not to do that based on what they want.
yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I think is I wish they talked about TikTok because when you ask what's your favorite product, TikTok is my favorite by far, beyond a comparison, I think.
Mm-hmm. Even more than like Twitter and that sort of stuff.
100%. It's not even a comparison. I mean, like, if TikTok wasn't a ridiculously superior product, it would not have been so competitive against the modern social media giants. It has tools that make it supremely competitive. I can go on and on for a while. It's not.
So,
It's
if there was one feature that you were to improve about TikTok, what would it be?
I mean, it's on a feature. I would say the company needs to look more human. They do a lot of work in terms of how to make their product tailored to their user, but the company itself looks like an amalgamous Chinese data company, right? And the thing is, their founder has a nice story. They can look human if they choose to. And I think that would help them a lot.
Interesting.
I had a question from
I-
Dhruv.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Uh, yeah, I remember last year, I think you were doing some project on like a map for UMass, that kind of thing. So, what part of like which club or what handles that thing?
There's no really club that handles that. It's kind of like I got involved in it through like a weird way. I saw like there was like a job opening at UMass through Handshake, and I applied. So it's not really like a club or anything. It's like a university funded project, and we hired like interns every 1.5, 2 years. So it's kind of like an intern cycle that we go through. We hire like one PM to software. So like since most of us are going to be graduating this spring, like I'm going to be gone. We have like 3 interns right now, so they're going to be like the next new leads, and they're going to take their own interns. So I think starting from next fall, there's going to be like opportunities for like PM and software positions, but not now. Yeah, but that's not like a club or anything. It's kind of like a cool experience, kind of like a startup-y vibe for like developing like a mobile app.
Okay.
Well, I saw that Aram had raised his hand. Do you have a question?
Oh no, I was just raising my hand because Disha had asked if anyone has seen The Social Dilemma.
What do you think about it?
Oh no, yeah, it just scared me. I mean, I just wanted to leave all the social media platforms right then. It was something profound to think about. But again, yeah, I've also taken informatics, so I'm learning about this and I find it very, very interesting. So yeah, I hope to get to know more about it as I go through this.
Yeah, anyone else have anything else to add? Nathan, Forum, I saw you guys had your cameras on for a bit. Did you watch The Social Dilemma or anything else to add?
I was curious if we can get a copy of the slides. I'd love to check out that information again and like click on some of the links.
Yeah,
Yeah.
posting it in Slack.
Yeah, I can do that right now actually while we're still talking. So.
And we'll also post a recording as well, probably through Slack.
We should
And
upload it on our YouTube channel and become YouTubers. We'll do that. And we'll
Let's
send
do it. How can we maximize, our exposure?
that reminds me, we made like a new Twitter account. I think it's product at UMass. So if we'll be sharing some cool stuff over there as well. So just
wait, no, it's at UMass product.
Okay, at UMass product. So make sure you go follow that if you're interested.
Yeah, that's another way if you just want to stay updated on like tech industry trends. We're following a bunch of like people, but also like Twitter is one of their great features is lists. So there's a couple lists of like VCs and founders that we're also following. So definitely go check that out for any other content. Nathan, did you have your hand raised? Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just typing in the chat. I was wondering if anyone had any awesome resources for UX design and development and or like A/B testing UX for better engagement or for better other metrics.
Yeah, that's
like a specific question.
So the Airtable link that's in the slides, I think there's a whole section for just like, hold up, let me pull it up really quick. Yeah, there's a whole tab for just supplemental resources. And I think there's like 20 different articles on just like improving your UX and UI.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so those would be great to look into.
Now, on another note, I recently started using Figma and I highly recommend it. Like it's a great UI UX tool. Like it took me a while to like get a hang of it, but once I know how to use it, it's really helpful. Like it's on the cloud, like you can like collaborate and like do stuff as well. And like you can like make components and like share it with other people. It's like really cool.
I second that.
Yeah, I feel like Canva is like the starting place for design. Like that's like your training wheels, and then you can take those off and like head to Figma, and that's like throwing yourself in the deep end.
Yeah, I agree. Figma's really cool.
All right, I think that's all we have for today, unless anyone had anything else to add on. All right.
Disha, I would love to talk with you about UX for OpenThink if you have a moment at some point.
Yeah. So did you get the email yet from anyone from Build?
No.
Okay, I was out this week. I was being tested for COVID and I had a whole shebang going on. So the team was supposed to follow up with you, but I'll make sure that they do. And I think we're meeting this week or the next, and then I'll make a mental note that we can chat about UX.
Cool, awesome, thank you.
It was good seeing you though. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, you too, this was awesome. Yeah, thank you everyone for hosting this. This was a super awesome presentation.
Yeah, I'm glad we have like a community of PM people and like not just like people are like, oh, I'm coders. No, we have product people. This is awesome. All right, thanks for coming, everyone. See you next week, and we'll post the slides and our new YouTube video really soon.
Thanks, guys. See you guys next week.
Thanks a lot.
See you guys.
Did Preetham leave again? This man.